The waiter placed the card back on the table, and for a moment, the woman sitting across from me looked as if the entire world had gone silent. Her face lost its confidence. She checked the card again, then her phone, then the card reader, hoping the machine had somehow made a mistake. It hadn't. Her card had been declined. What she didn't know was that the man sitting at the next table, the man who quietly reached for his wallet and paid her bill, would become her employee the following morning. And neither of us knew that one small act of kindness was about to change both our lives. If you believe that kindness can create second chances, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness for more stories that remind us how one small gesture can change everything. My name is Daniel, and at that time, I was 29 years old, working 2 jobs just to stay above water. During the day, I worked as a junior graphic designer at a small printing company. In the evenings, I delivered food around the city. I wasn't ashamed of the work, but I was exhausted. My father had passed away 2 years earlier, leaving behind medical bills that my mother and I were still struggling to clear. My younger sister was studying at university, and every month I quietly calculated which bill could wait another week. Still, I had one dream. I wanted a better job, not because I wanted luxury, but because I wanted my family to stop living from one paycheck to the next. For months, I had been applying to larger companies. Finally, one Monday morning, I received an email offering me a position at a respected marketing firm called Northbridge Creative. The salary was almost double what I was making. I stared at the screen for several minutes, afraid that if I blinked, the offer would disappear. My first day was scheduled for the following morning. That evening, after finishing a delivery, I stopped at a small cafe near my apartment. I was tired, hungry, and too anxious to think about the next day. While waiting for my coffee, I noticed a woman sitting alone near the window. She looked to be in her early 30s, dressed professionally in a simple cream-colored coat. She had a laptop open, several documents beside her, and the kind of calm expression that made people assume she had everything under control. But after a few minutes, I noticed her hands trembling slightly. The waiter brought her the bill. She reached into her handbag, took out a black card, and handed it over. A moment later, the waiter returned with an apologetic expression. The woman frowned and tried again. Declined. She opened her banking application, refreshed the screen, and attempted another payment. Declined again. I could see embarrassment spreading across her face. She looked around the cafe as though she was afraid someone might recognize her. Nobody moved. Nobody offered help. A few people glanced over and then quickly looked away. I understood that feeling. There had been nights when I had stood at a grocery counter praying my card would work. There had been moments when I had pretended I had forgotten my wallet because I didn't have enough money. I knew how humiliating a simple declined card could feel. So I stood up. I walked to the counter, handed over my own card, and paid the bill without making a big deal about it. The woman looked at me with surprise. She tried to thank me, but I simply smiled and told her it was nothing. I returned to my table before she could ask my name. I didn't think about her again. The next morning, I arrived at Northbridge Creative 15 minutes early, wearing the best shirt I owned and carrying a folder containing my documents. My hands were sweating as I entered the glass doors. The receptionist smiled and asked me to wait in the conference room because the new director wanted to meet me personally. I sat there nervously. Then the door opened. The woman from the cafe walked in. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Her eyes widened. Mine probably did too. She was wearing a dark navy suit now, her hair neatly tied back, and behind her stood 2 senior managers. She was Elena Carter, the newly appointed managing director of Northbridge Creative. And she was my new boss. I suddenly understood why she had looked so stressed the night before. Her personal bank account had been temporarily frozen because of a security investigation following a suspicious transaction. She had been waiting for the bank to resolve it. She hadn't wanted anyone at the company to know because she had only taken over the position days earlier. But what happened next surprised me even more. Elena didn't mention the cafe in front of anyone. She simply welcomed me to the company and asked me to sit down. Over the next few weeks, I worked harder than I ever had before. I arrived early, stayed late, and refused to complain. But I also noticed something about Elena. Despite her position, she seemed lonely. People respected her, but few trusted her. She had inherited a company where employees were afraid of management, departments fought with one another, and several talented workers were considering resigning. One evening, I accidentally discovered why. Elena was sitting alone in the conference room after everyone had left. There were financial reports spread across the table. She looked exhausted. The company was losing money. I could have ignored it. It wasn't my responsibility. But I remembered the woman at the cafe, the uncertainty in her eyes, and the way she had tried to hide her embarrassment. So I stayed. I spent several hours reviewing the design department's expenses and discovered something unusual. One supplier had been charging the company significantly more than market rates for months. I prepared a detailed report and gave it to Elena the next morning. The investigation that followed revealed that a senior executive had been secretly approving inflated invoices and receiving payments from the supplier. Elena was stunned. That discovery saved the company from losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. But she never treated me like a hero. Instead, she told me that I had done something more valuable than saving money. I had chosen to care when I could have walked away. Months passed, and my life began to change. I received a promotion. My mother no longer worried about overdue bills. My sister could continue university without wondering whether tuition would be paid. For the first time in years, I could breathe. Then one rainy evening, Elena called me into her office. On her desk was an envelope. Inside was the receipt from that cafe. She had kept it. She told me that when her card was declined that night, she had felt powerless for the first time in years. She had built her entire identity around being strong, successful, and independent. But that small moment had reminded her that everyone needs help sometimes. She said she had never forgotten the stranger who paid her bill without asking for anything in return. I smiled and told her that I hadn't done anything special. I had simply seen someone struggling and remembered how it felt to struggle myself. Elena shook her head. She said that was exactly what made it special. Years later, Northbridge Creative became one of the most successful firms in the city. I eventually became a creative director, and Elena remained one of the most respected leaders I had ever known. But whenever we passed that little cafe, we would sometimes stop and remember the night when neither of us understood what was happening. A declined card had brought two strangers together. A simple payment had opened the door to a new career. And one quiet act of kindness had created a friendship neither of us expected. The truth is, we rarely know what someone is carrying behind a confident smile. We don't know who is fighting a private battle, who is one rejection away from giving up, or who simply needs someone to show them that they are not alone. Sometimes kindness doesn't require money, power, or influence. Sometimes it only requires noticing. And sometimes, the person you help today may be the person who changes your life tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need a little hope today. Before we end, I want you to leave a comment. Kindness always comes back. Because you never know how far one small act of kindness can travel. Daniel thought he was simply paying a stranger's cafe bill. He never realized he was paying for the beginning of his own second chance. And Elena never forgot that sometimes, the most powerful people in our lives are not the ones who give us opportunities because they owe us something, but the ones who help us when we have nothing to offer them in return. That night, Daniel paid a bill. In the end, kindness paid him back with a future.